Good morning, and a wonderful day looking out on the Cooper River. A little chilly, but nevertheless, a beautiful view. We thank Camden County for providing that view for us. My name is Marlene Asseltum with the Southern New Jersey Development Council. This is one of our public policy breakfast series. It comes to you through the Education Technology Committee. I'd like to recognize the co-chairs, if you would just give us a wave. Candace Rossetti, Rowan College of South Jersey. Candace, Dr. Sue Lerman, Rowan University, and Mike Sapanik is Rutgers University right here. Thank you for your leadership and the work that you do on the committee. Lots of people to introduce to you today, so a little patience, please. Host sponsors, and you know these events don't just happen. We have a wonderful core of members who often ask to host one of our events. So I'll begin with Belia Print and Design. Andrew Belia, he's right here. PCS, Anthony Mangaluzzo, there you are. Performance Marketing and the chairman of our board, Glenn Davila. PSC&G, Addie Cologne. Addie's here. There she is. Rowan University, Dr. Joe Cardona. And Rutgers Camden, Dr. Antonio Tillis. Good morning. And Mike Sapanik also. And Stokes Creative Group, Patty Sheets. Is Patty not here? But you're representing Stokes. Thank you very much. So thank you all for your financial assistance for today's program. There are a lot of educational institutions in this room. I can't imagine why, but I'll introduce them. Atlantic Cape Community College, Vanessa O'Brien McMasters. Thank you, Vanessa, for being here. I don't know if John Hanson from Camden County College. Not yet, okay. But I think Bill Moen, I thought I saw, there's Bill from Camden County College, and also an assembly person, thank you. From Rowan College of South Jersey, did Dr. Keating get here yet? No. From Rowan University, of course, Dr. Cardona and Dr. Lerman, you've met. Rutgers Camden, Dr. Tillis, you've met. And that's it for our colleges, and when the other two get here, I'll point them out to you. I don't know if my partner chambers are here. Camden County Chamber, Kristen, is Kristen here? And did Janet, Gloucester County? No. Okay. We often partner with local chambers, just to show unity, gather everybody in the room, and it works very well for us. So I suspect that you'll see Janet and Kristen before the meeting is over. And I know the parking lot got filled up, so that's another issue. Regrets from Assemblyman Greenwald. I got a call late last night, small family emergency, so Lou won't be with us today. Assemblyman Bill Moen is here. I mentioned him. Camden County Commissioner Shanika Boucher. How do you do that? Where is she? Tell me that last name. Boucher. It's French. Thank you so much for being here. Gloucester County Commissioner and Deputy for the board is Heather Simmons. Thank you, Heather. The Mayor of Clayton, Mayor Tom Bianco. I saw Tom. There you are. And the Mayor of Gloucester Township, Dave Mayer, right here, who you will hear from shortly. So that, I believe, did I forget anyone? I believe that is it for the introductions. We'll get on with the program. It's my pleasure, since Assemblyman Greenwald could not be here, it's my pleasure to introduce an old friend of this organization and of me personally, someone who's done some pretty wonderful things in Gloucester Township, I might add, and is now doing some pretty wonderful things at New Jersey American Water. But today he comes to us as the chairman of the Board of Governors for Rowan and Rutgers. So please welcome Dave Mayer to the podium. Thank you, Eddie.
Well, thank you, Marlene. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today to talk about what we're doing at the Joint Board. Before I do that, thank you, Marlene, for your many years of service to our South Jersey community and for advocating for us, and especially in terms of economic development. So thank you, and the Council. Secretary Bridges, thanks for joining us today and for all the great work you're doing in higher education. I'm really new to the board. I was appointed by Governor Murphy in December, and then recently became chair. I was standing with the board, and they said, "Who wants to be the chair?" And everybody took a step back, and I was just standing there. But it's really an honor. I'm very excited about the work of the board, and everything I'm going to tell you today, I can't take any credit for because I'm new, but I want to thank former Camden City Mayor Dana Redd, who's our executive director. She sends her greetings. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but we have Dean Diasuto and Corey Hoffman from our joint board. It's really their great work, and former Speaker Jack Collins, who was the chair of our board, for the great work that they've done since 2012 when the board was formed. You know, our primary mission is really to leverage our educational and research assets here in South Jersey to kind of grow our healthcare capacity in our region. And it's really a fantastic mission. And we do that in 4 ways. We leverage, as I mentioned, but we look at the education and the institutions in our South Jersey region. And if you really think about it, you have Rowan University, Rutgers Camden, our community colleges in Stockton down the shore. They are tremendous assets to our region, and the capabilities that they have is tremendous. And I was very fortunate. Rutgers has treated me very well. I did the trifecta at Rutgers Camden. I got my bachelor's, my master's, and law degree, all at Rutgers, so it's a special place. In Rowan University, I've been an adjunct teacher there for the last 12 years. So I don't have any favorites. I love everybody, and they're great institutions. But we bring those institutions together, building those partnerships, and we're very excited about that. Another impact that we have is an economic impact. And if you look at the building, the Joint Health Sciences Center that we build, 100,000 square feet of pure research and development. It's been tremendous, and it sends ripple effects, $72 million in economic development. And the thing I'm really excited about as well is the civic and workforce development that we're doing at the board. We've developed, and Corey's been a big part of this, the Certified Medical Assistance Program, giving individuals from Camden City and our South Jersey region an opportunity to be a part of the medical field. And it's certainly well needed, as well as our Alzheimer's Journey Coordinator Program. We're training individuals to help individuals that have Alzheimer's and their families, and helping them through that journey from that very debilitating disease. And so we're proud of those programs. And then finally, it's public health. We created the South Jersey Institute for Public Health, and we recently did our first round of grants, $250,000 to, I think it was 20 organizations, Dean, that really helps with that collaboration, our innovation, and that research. So again, it's bringing folks together, really creating, I think, a great network of research and development here in the South Jersey region, and we're very excited about it. Like I mentioned, I'm relatively new to the board, but already I'm just seeing the great benefits of the board. And again, really thank Rowan and Rutgers, our community colleges, for what you're doing and the services that you provide to our residents here in South Jersey. So with that, I have the honor of introducing Dr. Antonio Tillis, who is the Chancellor of Rutgers-Camden. Before joining us at Rutgers-Camden, Dr. Tillis was the interim president at the University of Houston downtown. We're glad that you're in downtown Camden now, and we really appreciate your vision that you have for Rutgers and for Camden and our South Jersey region. So we welcome you, and please join me here at the podium. Dr. Tillis.
Thank you, Mayor. It's always an honor to be introduced by a civic leader such as yourself, and to boot when that civic leader is also a trifecta graduate of Rutgers University Camden. Good morning to you all. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning. Dr. Brian Bridges serves as New Jersey Secretary of Higher Education. He is responsible for the policy development and coordination of higher education activities in the state. Moreover, he is committed to making certain that New Jersey families have access to the transformative power of higher education, and knows what that means as it relates to moving our cities, moving our counties, and moving our state forward. And he also knows that this is fundamental to workforce development, that our universities have a responsibility in creating the next generation of workforce for multiple cities, multiple counties, and the state of New Jersey. Previously, Secretary Bridges served as Vice President of Research and Member of Engagement for the United Negro College Fund in Washington, D.C., where he led the Frederick D. Patterson Research Institution and the Institute for Capacity Building. He also had stints at Ohio University, also at the American Council on Education, and was a part of the professoriate at George Washington University. Dr. Bridges earned his Doctorate of Higher Education Administration from Indiana University in Bloomington, his Master's of Public Administration from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and his bachelor's degree in English from Francis Marion University. Please help me in welcoming our keynote speaker and our Secretary of Education, Dr. Brian Bridges.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's cold out. We can warm ourselves up with a more robust good morning than that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. Well, it is truly a delight to be here with you today. I didn't realize that this was such a big deal. My staff said, "Oh, you've gotten this invitation to speak in South Jersey," and they gave me the address, and I said, "Oh, that's less than a mile from where I live. I live right down the road here." And so I said, "Sure, I'm happy to do it." And I didn't realize that I was the keynote speaker, and and everything was focused on what I would say today. So let's make this an engaging and interactive discussion. The development of South Jersey is dear to me, as I said. I live right down the road here. I love Cherry Hill, and I was even more pleased when I was watching the Ali documentary recently and saw that he lived in Cherry Hill. He had a house in Cherry Hill 50 years ago or something like that. So I enjoy the Cherry Hill area, and so the development of South Jersey is very dear to me. And despite having to commute up to Trenton every day, I'm actually going to leave here and go straight to Trenton. I enjoy this area of the state. So looking forward to the discussion that we'll be engaged in here today. And as I said, I want to make this an engaging and interactive discussion. So I'm going to talk. I don't want to talk at you for 20 minutes and then field questions. So if there's a burning question that comes up as I'm talking, please just raise your hand and we'll entertain them and make sure that we keep the presentation flowing so that we can all be informed and then get out of here on time. So one of the things that I want to reinforce is that New Jersey is currently engaged in probably the most transformative shift in higher education in 30 years, since the Kaine administration, really. And higher education is critical to the formula for enhancing growth, prosperity, and opportunity across New Jersey. As I tell people often, higher education, these colleges and universities are engines of not just economic mobility, but engines of community engagement, engines of educational productivity. They don't only produce and educate our future workforce, but they also often employ hundreds and in some cases thousands of individuals, pouring money back into their communities. They also, as the chair mentioned, are economic engines in multiple ways, not just in providing employment, but the dollars that come into our colleges and universities are often reinvested into the communities, often threefold. And so, in addition to that, they often provide solutions and problem-solving resources for local challenges that our communities face. And so our colleges and universities are critical to the advancement of our areas. As I was told once, you can't have a great city or a really strong town without some kind of post-secondary institution. And I'm a firm believer of that. And so with that, I want to talk a little bit more about our goals at the Office of the Secretary of Higher Education and how we're centering higher education as part of Governor Murphy's agenda and moving forward over the coming years. So this morning, I'll share a little bit more about the state's vision for higher education and our attainment goals and how it's contributing to the workforce, and our current initiatives specifically focusing on strengthening pathways into the workforce and matching talent to jobs, enhancing career technical education programs through the Securing Our Children's Future Bond Act, and ending with discussing several construction improvement opportunities that exist before us. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about our state plan for higher education. This is the first time that New Jersey's actually had a state plan, and this is on our website for higher education. In the past, our approach to higher education has been based on the whims of whatever has emerged at the given time. And about 3 years ago, the administration decided that we need to have a plan that charts our course. And we talked with lots of stakeholders across the state. Some of you might have been engaged in some of those conversations. And what came out of that was this kind of visionary plan at a high level. It's not a strategic plan that charts the day-to-day activities, but gives us a direction and charting our course in these 5 areas. One, that we want as a state to create more early college exposure for our students. As I tell people often, you can't create an engineer when students are juniors in college. You have to have some exposure to people, to science earlier than when students are in college. And I often tell a story about, I was able to participate in a NASA launch conference about 17 years ago now, and was able to see the space shuttle launch from where the families would watch it. And I remember being there, and there's this little museum there and what have you, and there were kids, tons of kids there who were there from their local elementary schools and junior high schools. And I remember thinking, gosh, if I had seen this when I was in elementary school, I would have gotten so excited. I probably would have wanted to join NASA. Now, I ended up being too tall to be an astronaut, but I would have loved to, I probably would have pursued a different course in life. Now, my life turned out fine, nevertheless, but giving students those kind of early exposure to the possibilities and opportunities that exist is something that we have to do and requires us to partner with our K-12 partners throughout the state. And as I often also say, driving around New Jersey now for almost a year and a half, I'm on the Turnpike and I'm on the Parkway, and I see a lot of these big amorphous buildings off on the side, huge buildings. And I wonder what's going on in those buildings. And I'm sure that in some instances, great innovation is taking place. But our students, our kids in middle school and high school aren't even aware what they need to do to get connected to those possibilities and opportunities. So that early exposure, we have to work closely with our K-12 partners, and I'll talk a little bit later about what I call the education workforce ecosystem, to create that ecosystem and getting students excited and exposed. Early exposure is so key, and this is one element of the state plan. The next one is college affordability, and we've been pushing this agenda hard over the last few years. We now have a one-of-its-kind in the nation Promise program. Anyone familiar with Promise programs? This idea that the state or an institution will make a promise to students that if you do certain things and because you meet certain criteria, you will get tuition free. And so with our Community College Opportunity Grant, which provides tuition and fee-free education to students whose family income is less than $65K, the Community College Opportunity Grant, those students can go to community colleges for tuition free for 2 years. Now, this fall, we're launching the partner to that, the corollary to that, at the four-year institutions. On the back end, students whose families earn below $65K can go to a four-year senior public institution, one of our 13 senior public institutions across the state, including Rutgers, Camden, or Rowan. The last 2 years could be tuition or fee-free for those students. So a student who comes from our lowest income families can actually go to Rowan College, South Jersey, tuition and fee-free, and then transfer to Rutgers Camden. I'll say Rutgers Camden since he introduced me. They can transfer to Rutgers Camden and get 4 years of education, tuition and fee-free, which reduces their reliance on debt, allowing them to graduate with less debt when they come out of college, and remove some of those financial barriers and obstacles that many students face in trying to persist through to completion. So this is a one-of-a-kind program in the nation, partnering the CCOG and the Garden State Guarantee. And so we've reduced the affordability for college attendance. And in the Garden State Guarantee, there's also what we call a sliding scale. So it's not just for the lowest income students, but for students also whose families earn between $65K and $80K, they get a guarantee that their tuition won't be more than $7,500. And New Jersey is a tuition high state. So despite all the fees, the TAG program, how many of you are familiar with TAG? The tuition assistance grants. TAG is the largest single tuition assistance program that any state awards in the country per student. Of course, California has larger aid, but per student, we award, and New Jersey actually awards more aid per student than any other state in the country. So the way New Jersey is invested in higher education, to the chagrin of my leaders at our institutions sometimes, New Jersey has put a lot of money in the students' hands, in student aid. However, even though we provide more aid per student than any other state in the country, our students are still paying the fourth highest net price in the country. So tuition is high in New Jersey. And as I've pointed out to folks, I know this might be, I used to work in the UNC system, and I cheered St. Peter's really strongly, vigorously on Sunday. But I worked in the UNC system, and by many accounts, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill is arguably, if you ask people to name the top 5 or 6 public universities in the country, most people would throw UNC Chapel Hill in there. Every public university in New Jersey is more expensive than the UNC Chapel Hill for in-state students in North Carolina by a large amount because of the way North Carolina invests in higher education differently from New Jersey. So that's just a little tidbit. So affordability is something that we will continue to drive to open up the doors to access and allow us to reduce some of those financial barriers to students. Student success, writ large. I mean, everything that we do is about student success in trying to drive trying to drive student completion, because as I often say, it's not just about affordability to get students in the door, but affordability to what end? We want students to get to college and not stop out, because then they have a bunch of debt sometimes, but we want students to complete. So we're looking at transfer policies and other things like that in order to help reduce the obstacles that students might face in completing their college dreams. Safe and inclusive learning environments. We want now that we're opening the doors to more students through affordability, we want to make sure that our campuses are safe, welcoming, and inclusive for all students who are there. And we are working with, there's a group called the Campus Sexual Assault Commission out of that body of work, for instance, that is working to examine all of those kinds of the factors and policies and structures on our campuses that make it more difficult for students to report those challenges. We are also, as part of the legislation for that, every campus now has to administer a campus climate survey every 3 years. So that work is ongoing. And then research, innovation, and talent. we want to make sure that our campuses are thriving and producing the types of research and innovation that we want it to be. We're the home of Thomas Edison, and we like to embrace the innovation part of New Jersey's heritage. However, there's more work to do. Many states have begun to outpace us as far as our research and innovation is concerned. And so we're looking to figure out how to build in some of those areas as well. I see a question here. Good morning. And you are from Rowan University, I see.
Yes, Gaetan Jean-Marie, Dean of the
Oh.
College of Education at Rowan University.
Yes, nice to meet
I'd
you.
like to address early college exposure.
Mhm.
What is the vision to sustain initiatives focused on early college pathway? Rowan University is one of 30 or 33 institutions who receive the OMIC Opportunity Meet Innovation Challenge. We have 100 students who are participating in the Rowan Opportunity for Post-Secondary Education. These are 11th graders, 7 districts, 100 students of diverse background. We're excited, they're taking college credits, still do enrollment, and by the time they finish, they will have earned 9 to 10 credits.
Wow.
However, the program ends October 2023. Those 100 students, we hope, will come to Rowan or go somewhere else. But it's really about sustainability of these initiatives. So what's the vision? Because you need early college exposure before we can touch on the other areas.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And so part of our work, there's a dual enrollment study commission, so I'm glad that you brought that up, that is meeting, and we are issuing a report to the legislature to secure some of that additional investment that will build out those kinds of programs. Dual enrollment is a hot issue. For those of you who don't understand, dual enrollment is basically the idea of high school students enrolling in college simultaneously and earning credit for college before graduating from high school. There's more of a movement for that. I was talking with the head of higher education in Texas, who basically says that the community colleges in Texas have now, and Texas is a much larger state, but they've built their budgets around dual enrollment, that they've got over 180,000 students in high school in Texas who are also earning college credit through community colleges at the same time. And so the state is invested in that. We are looking to make those kinds of recommendations so we can build out those kinds of programs further. The state of Massachusetts, for instance, which New Jersey often compares itself to, spends about $7 million a year to underwrite dual enrollment costs for all high school students. So those students in Massachusetts don't have to pay for dual enrollment at all. So love to hear about more about your program because it helps us make the case for sustainability investments further down the road. So yes, we've got the governor's schools that we're looking to try to expand in the future, expanding our dual enrollment programs. Our College Readiness Now programs are all programs that our office oversees, and we're looking to build out and expand all of those programs. So great question. Thank you for that. Anything else on that? Okay, I'll proceed and talk a little bit about our the current state of higher education workforce pathways and the vision. We know that the value of higher education is multifaceted, that high quality degrees and credentials translate into higher wages and overall higher lifetime earnings. However, students often experience pain points along their journey toward completion. And we acknowledge that there are adjacent programs that have been problems that have been brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, for instance, such as hiring challenges, unfilled jobs, and the need to rebuild the economy. When I talk to people around the state, we've done some tours of manufacturing facilities, and the common thing I've heard, I don't know, this might be an issue, because there have been 3 I've talked to all in North Jersey, and this is, I'm sure, a challenge down here as well, that they need, the manufacturing facilities need skilled workers, particularly engineers, and they can't find them. A couple of these places, I can pay I've got 13 engineering roles that I can pay people $95,000 a year, but I can't find the qualified engineers. And so that's a challenge that we want to make sure that we're trying to address in higher education. We anticipate, economists and folks in OMB have anticipated significant economic growth over the coming months, particularly driven by the decline in COVID caseloads and the economy ramping back up once again. Earlier this month, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics released a report indicating that the state has now regained 86%, this figure here, of the jobs lost in March and April of 2020 and due to the pandemic. And so our unemployment rate rose by 1/10 of a percentage point recently, but it is trending in the right direction from where it was 2 years ago, and higher education has been playing a role in that. Industries experiencing job gains include trade, transportation, and utilities, approximately over 4,400 jobs available, financial activities, over 3,000 jobs available. This is just within the state of New Jersey. Construction, over 600 jobs available, other services, over 500 jobs available, and these data suggest positive trends for the state's economy and how our colleges and universities can try to ramp up. And our two-year institutions are incredibly important in this as well. How they can ramp up to help educate students to fill these gaps is something that we're very keen and paying close attention to and having lots of discussion about. I think that what we want to do is to try to equip our institutions as much as possible. We hope, our intention is our belief is that the Garden State Guarantee and the CCOG will help to reduce some barriers that will help some individuals get back into college and reskill and upskill that can take advantage of some of these job opportunities before them. The governor also included in his proposal part of something that came from my vision to re-engage, $3 million proposal to re-engage the population of some college with no degree. There are depending on which data set you use, somewhere between 750,000 and 1 million people in New Jersey who started college and never completed a degree. Most of those people have debt that is burdening them. However, they don't have the credential or degree to go out and earn the type of job that that will allow them to repay those funds. And so part of our initiative is designed to, if the legislature approves it, designed to re-engage some of those individuals, track them down. We know we can't boil the ocean. We know that we have to start where we can. And even if we can move 10 to 20,000 of those people to re-engage with higher education in some way, that's a huge win. That's a huge boost to the economy. And so we want to start by identifying those individuals and reaching out to them, connecting with them, help providing them with some supports that will help them with their re-engagement. You know, if you stopped out from college 15 years ago, you know, they register for classes differently. A whole lot of things look different now. And so we want to provide supports to those individuals to re-engage with their institutions. And we also want to provide some support through prior learning assessments. There's this thing called PLAs, prior learning assessments, where people who are working full-time and have been working full-time for years can go out and have an assessment of their real life work experience and have that applied to possibly 3 or 6 hours of college credit. And that alone has shown to incentivize people to say, well, you know what, I just earned from the work I've been doing for the last 15 years, I just earned 6 credits of college credit, so I'm gonna go back to college now. And it can incentivize individuals. So we wanna help individuals as much as possible to identify the challenges and obstacles facing them to re-engage with college. And so we know that can help also boost these numbers and help fill the employment gaps that we know that are out there. As the state's economy continues to recover, educational pathways, and this is part of the education workforce ecosystem that I was talking about. These pathways must be transparent to encourage students to achieve their goals in a timely, cost-effective manner. And to get there, we need integrated systems that align education and the workforce. We need collaborations between employers, the community, the higher education sector, and the K-12 sector to ensure that post-secondary employment ecosystem is well-positioned for the future. And as I talk about it often, the idea of our communities have to be engaged with the employers have to be engaged with the institutions, K-12 schools and our post-secondary institutions to figure out what do the employers need, what do they want, what are they looking for in their employees, how to inform that work at the post-secondary level, and also help to do some of that early exposure that we talked about. You know, if our employee, and we know that there are challenges around, at one of the manufacturing sites that we toured, someone said, you know, there are liability issues with high school kids being in our facilities. They've got big turbines spinning and what have you. We understand that. But we're just talking about finding a way to give students some exposure to get them excited about the possibilities that exist. I see a hand back there. Yes, sir.
Dr. Dan from HopeWorks. We're a workforce development nonprofit in Camden. We work
Okay.
closely with higher education partners as well as corporate partners that are the hiring professionals.
Mhm.
The disengaged population that you just mentioned earlier, that whether they enrolled in college and dropped out or never enrolled, are the population that we work with and support.
Okay.
I employ you to check out HopeWorks because I think it'd be a fascinating model for you to learn more about and see success. We support on average 125 young professionals per year. On average, they come to us earning $400 or less per year, so unemployed. Upon leaving our program in 1 year, average wage is over $42,000.
Wow.
We work closely with corporate partners. I say that not to brag, but to share, what is your thoughts on trauma-informed care? The last 2 years, we've all gone through collective trauma, and what we find is a lot of our young professionals that we work with have challenges around the impact of trauma and need a support that's trauma-informed. I'm just curious how you view trauma-informed care and what role that plays in higher education and workforce development programs, corporate partners, and state of New Jersey.
Okay, well, thank you for the work that you do, and let's talk afterwards for sure. You know, we conducted a survey at our colleges and universities this past fall. Over 15,000 students responded, and 71% of the students who responded said that they were more concerned about their mental health than they were even the year before. And the year before was 2020, in the middle of a pandemic. And so we know that mental health and trauma over the last couple of years alone is something that we have to attend to. And that doesn't go without saying that there were already lots of people dealing with trauma in their lives prior to that as well. I think trauma-informed care is something that we have to look to integrate in our higher education work more fully, and I know that the college presidents, I'm on calls with them on a regular basis, they're all very concerned about this. In fact, there is a piece of legislation that was enacted recently that tasks our office to work with a task force to identify the challenges around online learning during the pandemic and potential learning loss. So, but what we want to do is, and I had a call with a few presidents yesterday, is so the New Jersey President's Council and our office has appointed a joint task force to append that legislation, because you can't have students be productive in online learning when they're dealing with trauma and mental health challenges brought on often by the pandemic, but often not by the pandemic. And so the presidents actually said, we need to look at this more holistically and not just talk about online learning solely, but let's make some recommendations about how do we identify how to best address the trauma-informed needs of our students, the trauma needs of our students. So we're definitely concerned about that. The governor announced in his budget message that he's working with the legislature. There is still quite a bit of ARP funds, American Rescue Plan funds, available, and I can say that I think that we're working to develop some kind of approach for a youth-based and college-based mental health initiative, and so we are definitely looking into that. So we totally hear that and want to try to address it as much as possible. Yes, a couple of questions.
Good morning, Dr. Bridges.
Good morning.
This is, Dr. Vanessa O'Brien, Masters from Atlantic Cape Community College.
Yes.
I have a question for you about engaging we mentioned the close to 2 million who have not completed degrees, as well as in Atlantic and Cape May counties, we have about approximately 65% of our population have only a high school diploma. So in engaging the populations in higher ed and the value of higher education, you mentioned all of the challenges that face in terms of a public opinion challenge that we have. I'm wondering at the state level if there's anything that could be done about a campaign regarding, coming back to college and leveraging some of these funds to educate the populations about the value of education in New Jersey.
Sure. Well, I like the idea about a campaign. I do think that one of the things, so we've been driving an affordability agenda, but as I've often said, affordability to what end? We want to also drive an attainment agenda. We have a goal of 65 by 25, and we know that COVID is going to, stifle our progress a little bit on that, of 65% of the state's population having some kind of post-secondary credential, not necessarily a degree, but a credential by 2025. So we've only got a few years to get there. As of 2019, we were at 57%, but we were still trending upward. And we know that COVID is going to throw that all off course. However, what do we need to do to try to make sure that everyone understands? Because attainment is different all across the state. When you look at the state attainment levels, post-secondary attainment is high in places like, where would you imagine? Which counties have the highest attainment rate? Bergen, Morris County is highest. I think Hunterdon, I have it in our state plan report. But there are several of the counties that are almost at 65% now already. And however, where would you think are the places with the lowest post-secondary attainment in the state? Yeah, South Jersey. The lowest is Cumberland County, followed by Salem County, and then I think third is Passaic County, but then fourth is Atlantic, if I remember right. So yes, the lowest attainment, and the attainment rates in places like Morris County and Hunterdon County, they're around, in Bergen, they're in the 60s, and down in Cumberland County, which is the lowest, it's 22%. So only 1 out of 5 people or so in Cumberland County have some kind of post-secondary credential. And so we know that we want to try to help those individuals and try to do as much as possible in places like Salem and Cumberland County to ramp up their post-secondary attainment, because, like I mentioned, there are thousands and thousands of jobs available that are good, well-paying jobs. And we're not saying that everyone has to have a bachelor's degree, but what's the post-secondary credential? We need more. We've heard from manufacturers that they need some people who have apprentices with engineers, and they don't all have to be full-scale engineers, but they just need to fill some of the gaps, and they're willing to provide some trained individuals once they get on board, but they want them to have some starting point with some level of post-secondary training, whether it's a certificate, a 6-month certificate, 12-month certificate, on up to a 4-year baccalaureate degree. You were going to follow up?
Do you mind, when I think about the regions of the state, and you think about the number of first-generation students the areas that you mentioned, there are, as you know, many of those students are many of the citizenry is not educated the further south you go. And I realize that that's a generalization, but it's supported by the data as well. So that support of first gens and the notion of going to college, when you talk about, even the differences in Camden County with the different towns and populations of citizenry that are college educated, again, it models behavior for others to go as well. We don't have that same benefit down in Atlantic Cape, where the majority of the populations are not college educated. Again, it's tourist industry, hospitality, all of the challenges that come with that region. So I'm thinking about, as we're making all of these statewide investments in education and initiatives and meeting the challenges head on, there are points where what do we do to address that public opinion issue. That's my
Yes.
big thing I.
Yes, that's a big thing, and if we could solve that, yes, we could also find a cure for cancer. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. This is something that has been decades in the making, and we want to try to address it as much as we possibly can in South Jersey. And we know that a rising tide lifts all boats, and if we can, as one of my old mentors used to say, raise the floor. Don't. A lot of places, colleges and universities, when they try to improve their performance, sometimes will often look at the highest performing students. Invest more in the honors college, or no, the greatest gain, the greatest possibility for gain and improvement is really raising your lowest performers. And so, how do we help address challenges related to post-secondary education, for the whole gamut of it? In South Jersey, and that's something that we want to be mindful of and concentrate on. So, great question.
Thank you.
Yes. You had your hand up?
I'm Melissa. I'm from Gateway Regional High School. We're a 7 to 12 public high school.
Okay.
And I just kind of wanted to reiterate what you said earlier. We have our first program with our good neighbors, RCSJ, this year.
Mm-hmm.
I have 11 CNA students. My school's 40% free lunch, who are getting certified, become certified nurse assistants before they graduate high school.
Wow.
And I just want to say, I know it's my humble opinion, 27 years in education, that's the magic bullet. Because parents, if kids are from parents who went to college, they're going to college. That's the expectation. My 40% free lunch kids, you got to take away some of those stopgaps. Like, for example, RCSJ arranged for them to have uniforms. If you don't have the clothes you want to go, you don't go to the party. Like, that would have been a stopgap for my kids. Oh, we don't have the scrubs. We don't know where to go. So transitioning from high school to college, that's the magic bullet. Because guess what? Most of those kids are going to end up going to RCSJ because they're comfortable there. They've made relationships there, and they know why they're there. They know what the next steps are. So you're demystifying the process. You got to get them out of their public high schools or help with the transition. We have seen a huge increase since we started our career program, which, by the way, is 7 to 12. We do stuff 7th and 8th grade because wait until junior, senior year to do anything to figure out what you want to do is entirely too late. So I just really want to kind of piggyback on what she said. This is a grant-based program, and Bridget and I are like, we got to get that grant back, but it really shouldn't be grant-based. This is like, in my opinion, you got to help with the transition, especially now because of everyone's anxiety. And we also, just so you know, the high schools also know parents who need jobs. I have actually hooked our counseling office. We know parents that need jobs, and we hook them up with jobs. So it's just something to consider.
So you're saying the magic bullet is dual enrollment and early exposure?
It doesn't really have to be dual enrollment. It's really making the transition from 17, 18 years old and even earlier, like you said, exposing them to careers. Because the careers aren't, they know the doctors, the lawyers, they don't know the biopharma people, the back of the house jobs. Like, if you can expose them so that when they're just, it will also increase people graduating from college. 51% of people actually graduate once they get there, because they don't know why they're there, other than to, have a good time sometimes. But, if you make it like, here's why you're here, and we're gonna help you build some relationships before you step in the door, show you around campus, let you know some people,
Yeah.
everyone's gonna do more if they feel comfortable.
And that's why we have programs like Gear Up to try to provide some of those early exposure to kids. And Gear Up is our Gear Up program, which is a federally funded grant program, is expanding to Bridgeton and Trenton this year. And so, but we don't have enough of those programs. And you're absolutely right that they're trying to invest in programs that are proven. So I'd be interested in hearing about more about this program that is that has evidence behind it to demonstrate impact. Those are the kinds of things that we need to hear more about. Yes.
I just have a question about
Sure.
any partnership with the Department of Ed to make sure that the high schools are aware of these plans, because what I see right now in the market of K-12 is a lot of high schools are really trying to figure out how to make this bridge and connection, and they are using their own resources internally to try to figure out how to do exactly what And I'm not sure if there's a level of awareness or education within the K-12 system about, what you guys are up to and what the resources are available. Because constantly, I'm in contact with a lot of people who are at the high school level, and they're trying to figure out what they should be doing, how they're gonna go about convincing kids to get into college. Right now, what we're seeing is that children are opting out of going to college and not recognizing that they can get additional credentials outside of just finishing. But we're having a hard time of, kind of encouraging kids to go pursue their post-secondary education, just based on, again, not low career exposure. And really, again, within the communities, a lot of the kids need to find a job right outside of attending high school. So to Dan's point earlier about being able to get a job that is going to kind of help out the family when you're pointing to affordability is really a reason why a lot of the students are opting out and thinking about just going directly into work and not understanding what credentials they can actually pursue to help them build a career instead of having to kind of get just any job.
Yeah, I think that we have to do a better job of working closely with K-12. We do want to promote our community college opportunity grant and Garden State Guarantee as ways to incentivize students to go to college. That for the lowest income students, the financial barriers, some of those financial barriers will be removed. And that we want to help encourage students to be mindful that high school students, that the opportunity exists before you and that the state believes in them and is investing in them. And so we will be working closely with our K-12 partners over the next year to try to get that message out. So great question.
So I was supposed to be leading the questions. I have done such a great job. I don't have to do anything. Thank you, I appreciate it. But I believe you still have a few more slides.
I do have a few more slides, so let me get through them really quickly.
And then maybe we can
entertain
have
any more.
just a couple more questions.
Okay, sure,
Yeah,
sounds good.
thank you so much.
Sounds good. Yes, I let the questions carry me away. So want to just touch base a little bit about training for in-demand careers because, the state has invested heavily in offshore wind, and we know that the economy is continuing to change, and it's important for New Jersey to prepare workers for jobs of the today and for the future, and offshore wind is a priority sector for the governor that has unparalleled potential to drive long-term equitable economic growth. Most notably, the New Jersey Windport project represents a nearly $400 million green infrastructure investment that has the potential to create more than 1,500 manufacturing jobs and construction jobs and $500 million in economic activity. Not only does this pave the way for long-term economic growth, but will create thousands of high-quality jobs that tomorrow's students have to be ready to fill. We're excited about partnering with the Economic Development Authority, with EDA, to expand education and training opportunities within the offshore wind and clean energy sector. For example, Atlantic Cape Community College, with representatives here in the room, received $3 million to establish an industry-recognized safety training program and facility to prepare workers for those high-paying careers. Both the training program and support facility will be the first of their kind in the state. And in addition, Rowan College of South Jersey won the New Jersey Wind Turbine Technician Training Grant Challenge and will collaborate with union trade organizations and industry partners to establish an offshore wind turbine technician training program. These initiatives are examples of the administration's whole of government approach to positioning New Jersey as a hub for the American offshore wind industry and ensuring our students are prepared to fill the in-demand careers in this growing sector, for instance. And I was told that people wanted me to talk a little bit about the Securing Our Children's Future Bond Act in relation to career and technical education. So I'll touch on this very quickly. If people have questions, I can answer them. But in addition to building pathways into new industries, it's important to provide students with viable options to stack their credentials, that they don't just, there are some students out there who are ambitious, who want multiple credentials and want to make them integrated and stacked upon one another. For example, we have to think about developing residents' transferable skill sets required to fill jobs so that we are training people for careers and not just a single job. For example, the Career Technical Education Program Enhancement and Construction Projects, funded by the Securing Our Children's Future Bond Act, expand program capacity and provide direct benefits to students. We announced in November 2020 the availability of grant applications for school security, water infrastructure improvements, and enhancement of career and technical education in county vocational technical school districts and county colleges in New Jersey. The grants were supported by $500 million in bonds authorized by the Securing Our Children Future Bond Act, approved by New Jersey voters in November 2018. OSHE administers the county college career and technical education piece that provided $50 million for community college CTE program expansion, and 2 solicitations have been released. The first with awards being announced in September of 2021, funding 14 community college projects totaling almost $26 million, $25.9 million. The second round awardees are projected to be announced in May of this year, so we're working diligently to do that. And then I want to touch quickly on some construction improvement opportunities as part of our New Jersey Higher Education Facilities Authority grant program. In November of last year, Governor Murphy and I announced $400 million in capital facilities funding that is projected to be released in a joint solicitation in the summer of 2022. This funding is from 4 revolving bond programs that support higher education needs that will benefit students, and all of the programs have differing eligibility, match, and cost share requirements. The 4 programs are outlined here in front of you. The SIF, the Capital Improvement Fund, which is the largest of the bond programs, the Higher Education Facilities Trust, the HEFT Fund, the Higher Education Equipment Leasing Fund, the ELF, and the Higher Education Technology Infrastructure Fund, the HEDI. And all these bond programs are administered by OSHE, working in partnership with the Education Facilities Authority to bring these programs to reality. A total of $400 million will be released in a competitive grant process. You know, as I told the leaders of the institutions, you know, everyone was really happy and excited about us announcing the release of $400 million to the institutions. And then, so there's a lot of joy, and then there will be pain when we have to tell people that their projects are not approved at some point later on, because we simply don't have enough money to fund everything. And we know that we're probably going to end up getting a request that total over $1 billion, and we've got $400 million to distribute. So that will be awarded by a competitive grant process that the solicitation will be issued. At some point, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff with due diligence and bonding and when you can release the bonds and when things are drawn down. If we've got any financial folks in the room, I'm sure you know how complicated and complex this is. So it's going to take us a few months to get there, but our hope is to release the solicitation probably in June with deadlines sometime in August or September for the grant projects. And so with this, that concludes my presentation. And
that was amazing.
Thank you.
We clearly need to have you come back again. And what a great job of asking questions. You know, sometimes you do these things and it's like the person leading the questioning is like, oh my God, will anyone ask a question? And you just brought out so much. Is there maybe 1 or 2 more questions before we end today?
this
My
question.
name is John McCarthy, I'm with the Southern New Jersey Development Council. Secretary, thank you for being here. One of the things you touched on that I think is great is all the entities and the investment being made in the capital and the buildings, but you also touched on a problem that we in South Jersey encounter every day, getting from place to place. Mass transportation is really, I don't even know if we can call it that down here. I know one of the things that we at the Development Council push for consistently is the Gloucester-Camden Light Rail. You know, how do we get folks from Camden down to Gloucester? How do you move students as well as the workforce? I mean, that's a separate thing, but there's a whole part of the state that's disconnected. We have all these wonderful entities that we just talked about and built up, but getting the students there is almost as crucial as the economics of it. And that's something that I know folks encounter, and I don't know if that's part of the planning in your process in doing this, but that's one of the problems we encounter in everyday life. And I'm
Yeah.
sure our students encounter as well. So, thank you.
Yes, no, I think that's a great question. And actually, I was at Rutgers Camden probably, Mike, when was that? Maybe 3-4 months ago? And I was amazed at how many students, and I had a session with probably 20 students, and the constant refrain was how long it takes them to get to Rutgers Camden. And there are students talking about quite a few lived in Sicklerville, I think, and there are students who said it takes 3 hours to get to Rutgers Camden, or that their daily commute is 3 hours round trip. And these are students who live, if they had a car, like 40 minutes away, and so, or less in some instances. And so it was amazing to me, and this is a constant refrain that we've heard a lot that has come up to me just within the last few months, that transportation is a challenge, particularly in South Jersey. And so we're looking into what we can do. We just had a call yesterday to look at, with some folks around other programs like EOF and how we might be able to funnel support through EOF possibly. I don't know. There's this program at in the CUNY system in the City University of New York called CUNY ASAP. And it's gotten rave reviews all across the country for dramatically improving student success, retention, and graduation. The challenge with it is it's incredibly intensive, it's incredibly expensive, and requires a lot of resources. But one of the things that they do, and this is New York City, they provide tuition, they provide a transportation voucher. They provide students with Metro cards and an certain amount of an allocation on their Metro card each month to remove the barriers of transportation for them. So, we are, early in the stages. You don't solve transportation issues in like a couple of months. But we want to explore this further because I've heard it quite a bit, like I said, just in the last 3-4 months or so. So I appreciate you bringing it up because it just reinforces more need to look at it.
My name is Marge Delavecchia, and I'm with the consulting architecture, engineering, and environmental firm PSMS.
Yeah.
And I guess I had 2 points that the conversation has triggered for me. One is there's a lot of engineers and architects in this room this morning. I see lots of my colleagues and friends, and we are all desperate for staff. I would probably speak for all of us, is that all of us are short on engineers, architects, and probably environmental scientists. So it's really great to hear that this has been on the rise, and of course the Rowan College of Engineering is terrific. COVID has interrupted our internship program because it's really hard to intern a student when you're not in the office. And again, I'm not sure if there's a question about this, but just to make sure that you know that these are really challenging times for our students. And we would take an intern anytime, any day, and kind of guarantee them a job when they come home for summer and winter and breaks from school. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there for note.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because this wasn't in my presentation, but we actually have taken over a partnership with the Department of Labor to what we're calling the Career Accelerator Program. So we have funding from the state to provide intern stipends to employers. So if you need interns for the summer, the deadline passed on Friday, but I might be able to get you in. If you need interns, we will actually, for for-profit companies, we will cover half of the intern stipend for the summer, up to $1,500. And if you're a not-for-profit company, we will cover $3,000 toward this intern's salary for the summer. So if anyone is interested, if you need some interns for the summer, please leave me with your card. Leave your card with me. And yes, that's right. And remind me of your name again.
Candace Raciti from Rome.
Candace, yes, Candace is out on our advisory committee.
And Bob is here. Bob, are you still here?
Oh,
Yeah, so he has Rowan University interns.
Yeah, and we've hired, I think, almost as many interns as we've had. We've had several from Rowan, and they're awesome. They're awesome students, and so it's great. The only other point I wanted to make additionally was the world of water and wastewater, and Dave Mayer and his water job can speak to this, is really lacking in terms of licensed operators. Licensed operators in this field of water and wastewater, they're all like 100 years old, and they're all that guy. And that guy gets either retires or hit by a bus. The world of, and again, I mean, my engineering colleagues can support me here, but that is just a huge gap in the world of what, and it's not a sexy job, you know, I mean, working as a wastewater licensed operator, it's totally not sexy, but.
What credential?
Forever.
What credential do those individuals
They
need?
need an operator's license, a water and waste, or a water or sewer operator's license.
So do they typically have associate's degrees or?
They,
No, not necessarily.
not necessarily, but having a degree would make them so,
Okay.
so valuable and, you know, a better student of the coursework as well.
Okay.
You know,
I-
to add to that, Marge, I mean, I'm with American Water, and she's absolutely right. The forecast for operators in the future is slim. And it's such a necessity. Just so you know, Mr. Secretary, in order to get a license, you have to take a course. But we don't offer any courses in New
Right.
Jersey. You go
Oh.
to the University of Sacramento or something. and-
It's an online
and
course?
It's online.
Okay.
But we have nothing in New Jersey
Huh.
to help kickstart a career in water and wastewater.
Huh, okay. I see one question back there, and then we'll have to, we'll have to write that.
Question and a statement.
Okay.
At Rowan College of South Jersey, we do offer a variety of wastewater courses. So I'd be more than willing to speak with you how we can help you with your workforce development needs. But I did have one question regarding your dual enrollment program. So as you're looking to work with high school students to get them college credits, are there any opportunities to work with them with the community colleges so they can take workforce certification programs? So that really helps them stack those credentials and get on a pathway for a post-secondary education, especially for those individuals who need to go to work immediately.
Okay, that's a good, good suggestion. I think what we're doing with dual enrollment is this study commission is meeting, and we've got actually Fred Keating from Rowan College, South Jersey, is on the commission, as well as Harvey Kesselman from Stockton, and Don Borden from Camden. And so I'll bring this up as something to consider. I think dual enrollment the goal is to have this commission provide some substantial recommendations to the legislature for them to mull over. And we debate about what we can fund and what we will do to expand dual enrollment. But I think it's a time that the expansion of dual enrollment is an idea whose time has come. But we want it to be informed by the recommendations from this report. So I think probably next year we'll see more around the state's investment in dual enrollment.
Thank you so much. Let's give Secretary Bridges another round of applause. And we really do need to have you back, so clearly. And I believe there's.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity. Great. I love a group that asks lots of questions. So thank you all, and I'll connect with the two individuals who had questions afterwards. Thank you, everyone.
So I know we're running long, so we're going to let everybody go. I'm going to save you from all of, you're supposed to do this?
No.
Who's doing this? What's wrong?
I have a thing.
So come say your thing.
No, you are supposed to do this. Yes, not to mention that he's my boss. Thank you very much. That was excellent, Dr. Bridges. One thing you mentioned quickly was the New Jersey Windport project. And I just want this audience to know, and my membership to know, that we are one of the three partners with New Jersey, or we are the third partner to New Jersey EDA and to AECOM Tishman, who is the construction manager of the Windport project. Don't let the opportunity pass you by. If you have any interest in working on that Windport in any capacity, there are some requirements, and we can help you with those and Ben is here, and he can answer some more questions for you. But the opportunity to employ South Jersey businesses, vendors, subcontractors is upon us now. So let's not let this go by us, because it's a South Jersey project. We want South Jersey businesses and vendors and subs working on that project. Any other questions? Find me, find Ben, and now, Mr. Chairman, it's your turn.
All right, my turn. I'm going to spare you all of my witty comments. I know we've kept you long, but thank you for coming. This is such an important topic. The conversation in the room here was all about workforce development and our abilities to find qualified employees. And the close second topic was Chris Rock and Will Smith. So thank you very much to our committee co-chairs, Candace Rosidi, Dr. Lehrman, Mike Stepanek is around here somewhere. I saw him all the way in the back. And special thanks to you, Secretary, for coming, and we'd love to have you back some other time. One last shout out to our sponsors, Belia Print and Design, PCS, Performance Marketing, PSE&G, Rowan University, Rutgers Camden, and Stokes Creative Group. So with that, go back out into the cold and let's get back to work. Thank you.